Welcome, dear watcher, to a venture unlike any other. I shall be your guide. But be forewarned, the border of insanity we shall be passing becomes harder to gauge through another's eyes. The tale you are about to hear is not a happy one, nor for the faint of heart. For a man whose world consists of flesh and rot, even the most innocuous of times can be repugnant. Perspective can be such a powerful force. Though this tale is rife with promiscuity, such moments shall be made available only at the discretion of each watcher. Even through corrosion and grime, it is possible for each to find their own light in the darkness of delirium. Perhaps the watcher too could find reprieve in the Song of Saya.
The wriggling lump of flesh burbles. Three such creatures are sitting around the table in front of me, slurping filthy sludge from their cups as they trade whines, growls, and sounds that I can hardly describe. By listening carefully, I'm able to grasp the gist of their conversation. This allows me to barely avoid arousing their suspicion. I can stay out of it as long as they're just talking among themselves, but I can't ignore them if they speak to me. However they may look, they are my friends, apparently. I want to deny it, of course, but I gave up on that a long time ago. Each night, I went to sleep wishing that this would turn out to be a nightmare, yet each morning I awoke to find that the world was just as horribly warped as it was the day before. I have to live while blending in, while acting like one of them. Just as I've done these past 3 months, I will continue to do for the rest of my life. Judging by its tone, this one must be Kouji. And the one next to him, squealing more than the others, is probably Oumi. Which means that the one next to me must be Yo, though I can no longer see any trace of her once refined features. I try my best to ignore the rotten stench of the excrement that issues from her quivering flesh. Everything has changed completely. While everything appears different to me, my relationship to the world is the same. These creatures were part of the same college club as me, and we used to be pretty good friends. We even went skiing every winter break. Now these are but fond memories of days that will never return. If only everyone, including my friends, had forgotten about me, I might have been able to disconnect myself from the world. It would have been comforting in comparison to believe that I had been abducted by aliens and taken to a different planet or something. However, this is definitely Japan on the planet Earth, and this is the city where I was born and raised, the society that I was a part of for 20-odd years. But I, and I alone, can no longer see it that way. I no longer recognize the world. I have no place to call home. But just then, one of the flesh lumps says, as it swivels its bloodshot eyes towards me.
What do you think?
About what? I desperately try to suppress my loathing and behave normally. but my hoarse voice ruins the attempt.
We're talking about this year's skiing trip. You're coming too, right?
A slimy hole near the top of the creature writhes nauseatingly as it vomits some semblance of words. So that must be Kouji's head, face, and mouth. Or rather, what I would have seen as such 3 months ago. I don't know. Unable to bring myself to look at it, I avert my eyes and give a neutral answer.
You have other plans?
Not really. Kouji was one of my best friends, as was everyone else here. They were all precious to me, and one of them had even desired to be more than just friends. How many nights have I spent crying in loneliness, lamenting the friends who no longer exist? In 3 months, I cried myself dry, and now there is only loathing left in me. Surrounded by fleshy creatures that I can only assume are Kouji, Oumi, and Yo, I spend each day trying to act like I always have. If I fail at this, I'll probably be sent back to the hospital. But this time, I'll be locked away forever. No matter what, I mustn't let that happen.
Hey, it's not like physical activity could affect your injuries, right?
I'm not sure. I'll ask the doctor during my checkup. I'm at my limit. I can't look at them or listen to their terrible voices any longer. Losing my patience, I jump to my feet.
Hey, Fuminori!
A spray of stringy slime from the cilia wriggling around its voice box flies towards me. I try to cover myself, but too late to keep the slime from splattering across my face like the yolk of a rotten egg. I'm on the verge of losing it. I want to grab a chair, a desk, anything within reach, and use it to smash the life out of this creature, ending it all. I barely suppress the impulse. I have to avoid arousing their suspicion. However they look to me, this is their world. I'm the outsider here. Like I said, today's my checkup. I have to go. I try to fake a smile, but I'm not sure it works. Reaching into my wallet, I pull out the first bill I find and put it on the table without looking at it. It's probably enough for the drink I ordered, and I don't care about the change. I just want to get out of here as fast as possible. Later. I leave, quite literally running for my life. I'm not crazy.
Hey,
Says Takahata Oumi.
why don't we go somewhere with skating for this year's ski trip?
Tsukuba Yo frowns at the suggestion.
Skating? Why go to a ski resort to skate?
Give her a break, Tsukuba. She's been into skating recently.
Tono Kouji supports Oumi with a laugh. Her sudden statements are nothing new, and it's Koji's role as her boyfriend to provide backup. To Yo, they seem like a good match for each other. Sometimes it makes her jealous.
I mean, she got started pretty late.
Hey, is it so strange that I've never been skating before?
I don't think there's many first-time skaters in their 20s these days.
I was kind of scared when I was little. Those shoes, they seemed like knives to me. But you were able to just start skating? That's pretty amazing, Oumi-chan.
It's not very different from skiing after all. You keep your weight forward and use the angle of the shoes to steer. And that's what he said, so I took his word for it and gave it a try. And it was fun.
Oh, so it was a date. Yo feels a stab of envy. Kouji and Oumi enjoy their time together like normal lovers do. That's certainly not something to be jealous of. It's just that Yo's luck has been bad.
I want to see Oumi-chan skating too.
Yo keeps her voice upbeat, trying to cover up her inner conflict. Yo knows that she mustn't be envious or blame luck. She has a special person too. It's because of the terrible tragedy that befell him that he doesn't spend any time with her. His is true misfortune, the sort that makes unluckiness pale in comparison.
So, how about it? If we make the next ski trip a skating trip too, it'll be twice as fun.
But you can skate at a skating rink, can't you? Why go all the way to a ski resort?
I want to skate indoors. I want to be outside where I can skate on a lake or something.
Will it be that easy? I think it'd be pretty crowded.
While speaking, Yo sneaks a sideways glance at him. Although the conversation has only involved Kouji and Oumi, with Yo supporting their lively banter, there are clearly two couples sitting at the cafeteria table. In other words, Yo's boyfriend, though there's still some doubt over whether he could be called that, was also present.
Hey Fuminori, what do you think?
Maybe Kouji sensed the pain in Yo's heart, in his usual quiet and considerate way.
About what?
Sound familiar? The cause of Yo's distress, Sakisaka Fuminori, responds to Koji's sudden query with a vague, mumbled question of his own.
We're talking about this winter's ski trip. You're coming too, right?
Kouji speaks gingerly, as though probing a tumor. A few months ago, he wouldn't have hesitated to firmly rebuke Fuminori for his attitude. Their long acquaintance had forged a friendship that needed no restraint.
I don't know.
Fuminori responds bluntly, his downcast eyes and sullen demeanor making it clear that he has no desire to break the silence.
You have other plans?
Not really.
Even Kouji, who should be Fuminori's best friend, cannot communicate with him as he could before. It should go without saying that Yo can't find a thing to say. The scars left by the events of that late summer day are still deep months later. Each one of the four bears them, not only Fuminori.
Hey, it's not like physical activity could affect your injuries, right?
I'm not sure. I'll ask the doctor during my checkup.
As though that thought drains the last of his patience, Fuminori bolts out of his chair.
Hey, Fuminori!
Even Kouji can't keep his voice from rising a little as he tries to stop Fuminori from leaving. Fuminori reacts swiftly, throwing his hand over his face as though trying to shield himself from something terrifying. Maybe some spittle flew inadvertently from Koji's mouth, but that's the sort of thing that happens occasionally during everyday conversation. At least, there wasn't even enough spit for Yo to see clearly. Certainly nothing you need to frantically protect yourself from. Even if he was spit on, Fuminori's reaction was extremely unpleasant.
Like I said,
Fuminori snaps, making no attempt to relieve the discomfort of his friends.
today's my checkup. I have to go.
Even as he tosses money onto the table, presumably to pay for his coffee, he acts like he's touching something filthy.
Later.
With a hurried stride that makes it seem as though he's running away, Fuminori leaves the cafeteria. Still cloaked in heavy silence, the remaining three lower their gaze to the table, where the abandoned 10,000 yen bill sways forlornly. Looking closely, they see that Fuminori's coffee is untouched. Oumi sighs.
I can't take this anymore.
But Kouji shakes his head reproachfully.
I think Fuminori just needs a little more time.
But it's been 3 months. What's with his attitude? I feel like I'm going to go crazy hanging around with him.
Hey, I don't get it either. And I don't think there's any way I can. Can you imagine what it'd be like to lose your family in such a horrible way? That'd screw anyone up.
It was a tragedy that could have happened to anyone. A tractor trailer flipped over, crushing the Sakisaka family car into twisted scrap. And they said it had even been difficult to tell the corpses of Fuminori's mother and father apart. For a while, it had looked as if there was no hope for Fuminori's survival. That he was able to leave the hospital and return to his life was nothing short of a miracle.
He was worse when we went to see him in the hospital, remember? He was terrified at us, like he didn't know who we were. And freaked out so bad he had to be tied to the bed. I'm just glad he made it this far.
There's still something strange about him. What's with the way he looks at us? It's like we're not human.
Cut it out, Oumi.
Koji says forcefully, his words of restraint probably less out of empathy for his friend than out of consideration for Yo. While Koji's kindness makes her happy, Yo also knows that, as Koji says, she mustn't depend on it. Fuminori is the victim. He is the one who most deserves sympathy. Yo's feelings for Fuminori are her problem, and no one else's. She doesn't blame Fuminori for not responding to her immediately after she finally worked up the courage to confess to him. In fact, she thinks even more fondly of him for his serious consideration of her feelings than she would have had he given a quick, casual answer. Assuming that, just because Fuminori didn't turn Yo down that they were essentially a couple, Koji and Oumi had plenty of fun at their expense. However, he still hadn't given her an answer. After revealing her feelings to him, Yo didn't see Fuminori again until a week later. And then she could only stare at his severely wounded body through the window of the ICU. And when he was finally released, after 50 days that seemed like an eternity, he was somewhat different. She's starting to doubt that he even remembers what she confessed to him before the accident. Now winter is coming, with her feelings still hanging in the air. To Dr. Tanbo Ryouko, there is no patient more troublesome than this young man.
Has there been any progression since then, Sakisaka-san?
No, there haven't been any problems to speak of.
His voice is hard and flat, his words tossed carelessly into the air. It is as though he is speaking to himself in an empty room. Even without the training of a psychiatrist, Ryouko can clearly sense the thickness of the wall he's erected between himself and the world.
Have you experienced nausea, dizziness, or auditory or visual hallucinations?
No, nothing.
While Sakisaka appears to be looking at Ryouko, his gaze is actually aimed a fraction down into the side. He's only superficially engaged in a conversation he has no interest in. Perfect rejection. Realizing that she can't interview him like this, Ryouko sighs and sets aside her chart.
Sakisaka-san, the treatment you received at this hospital was the absolute latest in neurosurgery. You know this, correct?
Elimination of subdural hematoma through the use of micromachines. A treatment available in Japan only at this T University Medical Center. Had been the only way to save Sakisaka Fuminori from a cerebral contusion that should have been fatal.
As it's a brand new treatment, we're still gathering data on it. This means that it carried risks.
No doubt.
Sakisaka Fuminori's lips twist slightly in what might be a bitter or mocking smile, but it's gone before Ryouko can discern its meaning.
Normally, it would be a problem for a doctor to frighten her patient like this, but there have been reports of serious brain disorders post-surgery. We must continue to monitor your condition carefully.
This is why he's been coming in for weekly checkups. Ryouko would like her patients to take them a little more seriously, though.
How was last week's MRI?
Sakisaka asks abruptly, as though trying to catch Ryouko off guard. MRI, magnetic resonance imaging, is a way for a neurologist to examine the brain in detail without opening the patient's skull. Surprised by Sakisaka's uncommon technical knowledge, Ryouko recalls his profile.
Oh, that's right. You're a medical student.
The kind of cerebral dysfunction you're worried about should show up on the MRI, right? Were there any anomalies?
No.
There was nothing. Not the slightest problem. For a procedure with such a low rate of success, the results have been miraculous. However, there is still something bothering Ryouko. Presuming on what might be a doctor's instinct, Ryouko believes that there is something wrong with this patient. She can't shake the feeling that he's hiding something beneath his guarded exterior. Some terrible weight on his soul. Fear. Or perhaps suffering. If it's an inorganic problem, There's nothing she can do as long as he refuses to explain it.
I'm fine, Doctor. After all, I'm living outside the hospital with no difficulty. What problem could there be?
You know, Sakisaka-san, continued observation is required after these difficult surgeries. You have to trust us a little more.
I suppose you're right. I do want to trust you, Doctor. Can I come to you with any problem?
Yes, of course.
Ryouko answers, smiling to cover up her irritation at being asked exactly the same question as last week.
Well then, let's pick up where we left off. Doctor, have you learned anything about Professor Ogai?
Unable to answer, Ryouko hardens the mask of her smile. He asked the same question last appointment, inquiring after someone whom he, an outsider, had no business knowing.
Professor Ogai, what does he have to do with your treatment?
You just told me to trust you, but now you're keeping secrets?
There are plenty of patients besides Sakisaka who make things difficult by jumping to conclusions. Ryouko understands that it's not an unnatural reaction when one's life is in danger. In Sakisaka, however, she doesn't see the short-sighted impatience that the other patients exhibit. His calm demeanor makes it seem as though he's questioning a suspect in a crime, rather than a doctor.
He left this hospital some time ago, after all. I never had any contact with him personally.
Do you know why he left?
Yes, I believe it was personal.
Ryouko answers smoothly with no trace of her earlier hesitation. Having decided on the outset to lie, Ryouko has no trouble doing so with a straight face.
But why are you so fixated on Professor Ogai, Sakisaka-san? Do you know him?
Did you know that the professor has gone missing?
No.
Ryouko realizes her answer was a little too fast. She should have acted more surprised.
I've recently become close with one of the professor's relatives, who has asked me to find him.
A relative? Ryouko considers this with a frown.
I don't believe Professor Ogai had any relatives.
Oh? Who told you that?
It was a rumor.
Ryouko replies, realizing that she had just said earlier that she'd had no contact with him.
I see. So Professor Ogai was famous enough to have such rumors floating around.
Well, he was apparently an unusual man.
But no one knows why he left the university?
Ryouko falls silent, knowing that this isn't a topic she can just brush away with a smile. Sakisaka seems to have finally grasped her mood, however, as his strangely stiff tone softens a little.
Doctor, I absolutely must find Professor Ogai. There's a child who's lost without him. Can't you help me?
Isn't this something the police should handle?
Although she says it like it's nothing, the suggestion is actually a risky gamble. If Ogai Masahiko's disappearance becomes a police matter, the university will likely be investigated. And in order to cover up the mess Ogai left behind, the entire faculty will have to work to dispose of the evidence. And that includes Ryouko herself, of course. However, Sakisaka isn't likely to ask the police to investigate. First of all, his excuse is clearly a lie. They already made absolutely sure that Ogai Masahiko had no relatives who might come looking for him, which is what allowed them to bury the truth of what happened. But still, how did Sakisaka, with no connection to this hospital other than as a patient, learn about Ogai?
Sakisaka-san, I'm happy to tell you everything I know. However, there's been no word from Professor Ogai since he resigned last April. All I can think of is that he must have gone on a long vacation or something.
I see.
Expecting resistance, Ryouko is surprised when Sakisaka backs down. Nevertheless, she's still worried about his condition, and the mysterious link between him and Ogai Masahiko is only making her more uneasy. But as long as he doesn't open up to her, there's nothing she can do. After a brief pause, Ryouko writes, "Progress good," on Sakisaka's chart for today.
About next week's appointment, Sakisaka-san. How does 4 o'clock again sound? Oh.
But before she can finish, Ryouko looks up to see Sakisaka already heading out the door.
It looks like someone sprayed the walls with pig guts from ceiling to floor. But I know that this is the hospital hallway. What color should the walls of a hospital be? White, of course. It goes without saying that no hospital should ever paint the walls this color. And to the creatures of rotten flesh shambling around me, this hallway probably looks just as white as it should. I know that the walls are really white, and that the piles of meat are really humans. I'm the one with the problem, and it's because I've accepted this that I'm able to lead a normal life. Even if my university's medical department is nowhere near as good as T University's, I'm still a medical student majoring in neurosurgery. I have a basic idea of what has happened to me, though it's hard to believe. This isn't a pathological condition. It's probably some form of agnosia, or an unknown type of cognitive disorder. The flesh beast called Tanbo Ryouko said that there were patients who had developed brain disorders after receiving the same treatment as me. So, I guess I'm just another failure. So much for the elite T University Medical School. Makes me want to laugh in that know-it-all doctor's face. That said, I don't blame the doctors who operated on me. After all, I do owe them my life. I know as well as anyone how low the chance of success was, and that there was no other way to save my life. What it all comes down to is my bad luck. Nothing more. The point is that my condition isn't treatable like your everyday mental disease. I have no choice but to live the rest of my life with this disorder. Just like someone adapting to a hearing aid or wheelchair, I must adapt to this nauseating scenery. Of course it's hard. It wasn't easy to resign myself to this fate. But now there's more than just despair. Even for me, there is a single glimmer of hope. Keeping my eyes on my feet so as to see as little of this horrifying world as possible, I hurry home. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood, in a house that's much too large for me alone. My parents, even unluckier than me, died in the accident 3 months ago. I couldn't even go to the funeral for being in intensive care. My father's business collapsed, but I was left with the house and enough money to live on for a while. Of course I'm sad, but that accident took more from me than just my parents. In fact, being able to live alone and as I please has probably saved me. If they were still alive, my parents would never have allowed me to live with some strange girl, after all.
Welcome home!
As I open the door, a bright voice greets me from the kitchen. Clear as a bell, the voice is undeniably human. The moment it reaches my ears, it flushes the day's terrible voices and discordant sounds from my memory. I'm home, Saya. Even the patter of feet coming down the hallway is music to my ears. Nowhere else in the city can I hear such footsteps. Only in this house, with Saya, am I so privileged.
You're late! I was a little worried.
Sorry, I had to stop by the hospital today.
Oh? That was today?
In her smile, in the quizzical tilt of her head, is everything that I have lost. Since my accident, this girl is the only person I've met, perhaps the only person in the world, who does not trigger my cognitive disorder. True, her skin seems too white, and the color of her eyes and hair is probably different in reality. Even so, her form is clearly, undeniably human. And it's not just her appearance, even her voice, and her... As I bend down to take off my shoes, Saya, as always, wraps her arms around my neck and pulls me gently into her tiny bosom. Her skin feels truly human, neither cold nor slimy, and from her hair wafts the sweet fragrance of a young girl. In all the world, Only Saya is pleasing to my 5 senses. And what's more, she smiles at me, embraces me. She knows that she is my salvation, and for some reason is happy that I need her. If I had not met her, if I had been all alone in this twisted, filth-ridden world, I would no doubt have quickly succumbed to true madness. It is no exaggeration to say that Saya alone is keeping me alive. What did you do today?
Worked on the living room. The painting is half done. And now I'm making your dinner like I learned from the TV.
Sounds good.
It'll take a little longer. Can you wait?
Sure. I'll do some more work in the living room. After watching the humming Saya return to the kitchen, I enter the living room. I realized one day that if the colors of the world are sickening, all I have to do is paint them over with colors that seem pleasant. After I bought every kind of paint in the hardware store, Saya and I started trying out different combinations. It should go without saying that, after painting the bedroom from ceiling to floor, I was finally able to get my first good night's sleep since the accident. When we first started on the living room, Saya, unsure what to do with the curtains, had just painted carefully around the windows. Without hesitating, I tore the curtains down and painted over the window glass itself. There'll never be anything out there I want to see, and if we keep the rain shutters down, the neighbors probably won't think anything of it.